Welcome to a special episode of the No BS Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Throne and Liberty and MMOs as a whole. We plan on doing more of these whenever a game that we really want to talk about is released or announced that we think deserve its own episode. So be sure to stay connected with us on all platforms at No BS Podcast GG to find out when we do more of these special episodes. So Throne and Liberty is a MMO made in Korea. It's free to play. Now, I have, as of right now, because it came out with October 1st, I have 27 hours already played on the game. I've been playing a crap ton of it. My biggest pros for this game, I mean, the graphics. I mean, you hop into it, man. It's so it's because it's on Unreal Engine 5, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So like, there's always like, I know with being a huge WoW fan, there's always like that. What if the MMO was redone on Unreal Engine 5 and had updated graphics? And Throne and Liberty kind of did that. Now, it's kind of set in a more medieval era. I mean, you still got like spell powers and stuff like that, but overall, graphically, it's very good. What my favorite thing about this game so far is it seems to be very guild-based gameplay and PvP gameplay in general. Like, I'm a huge PvP player, Steve. You know this. I always try playing games like WoW for, the dungeons and the raids, but I always end up going back to doing arenas and PvP. Now, the cool thing about this one is you don't have, like, your typical classes. And your class is based upon what weapons you equip. For example, in this game, I'm running dagger crossbow because I guess it's like the most broken dueling combo, or you can be a sword and shield with as well a great sword. So the fact that there's so many different customizations is freaking awesome. And talking about the customization, dude, that character creation screen, I mean, it's like, I saw a video, like somebody made their character look like Kanye. So like there's tons of options available for, like I said, what kind of class you want to be and how you want your character to look. Now, I did do a few dungeons and they seem pretty cool. They were, I will admit, they were very confusing on how exactly to do them, because like in WoW, I know, you open up the map and it kind of gives you like a easy like layout of the dungeon of like where you're supposed to go and stuff like that. But in this game, it was a little confusing. I mean, but like I said, the game's been out for 4 days, so I imagine like as the game, as you play it more and more, you're going to get more and more familiar with the dungeon layouts. Now, the battles were actually very challenging. I don't even think I've actually completed a full dungeon because nobody really knows. Like, you have boss fights and nobody really knows exactly what to do. Now, when you play WoW, you have your raid frames, on the left-hand side that show your tank, your healer, your DPS. In these dungeons, you have, I think it's 4 DPS, 1 tank, and 1 healer. But there's no, like, really icons next to anybody's, like, character portrait showing who is who. So you don't really know who's the tank, who's the healer until the guy, goes forward and starts pulling crap. Now, the map is ginormous. It's huge. It's kind of refreshing to see how big it is. You're not kind of stuck in one little area. Now, I did try, I'm a big Professions guy, and I tried their fishing out. And it was very immersive. So you actually have to hook the fish. And the way it works is, so the fish is swimming in the water, and you actually got to pull your pole with your A and D, or I'd imagine your left and right joystick, the opposite way that the fish is pulling. So if the fish is in the water, you see it swimming to the right, you'll pull your joystick, or you're to the left, or you'll press A to keep it on the line. Now, this game also offers tab targeting combat, just like World of Warcraft. And the abilities, the icons look really nice. The abilities themselves look really, really cool. I could tell that they put a lot of work into the way the characters, the animations of the abilities. So I think that the map and the environment is actually very well done. So like, what are your biggest pros for this game right now, Steve?
So I definitely haven't been playing it as much as you. I think I have like 6 or 7 hours into the game. But again, like similar to you, the graphics are incredible. Like as soon as you hop in and you kind of jump into the world, it looks amazing. One of the big things I love is the world just feels alive. And I know we were kind of talking about it a couple of days ago, that it just kind of feels like you're almost like back in like vanilla or some of the older expansions where you see people walking around in the city, you see people questing. It's like I can't remember the last time I leveled up a character in World of Warcraft and I saw people questing. Um, so it's awesome to see just people everywhere, people doing stuff, people enjoying the game. The character creation, like you said, was insane. Like I was a little overwhelmed in the beginning, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I think they have like a face scan option where you can scan your face and kind of make yourself as the character, which is it's awesome.
So 7 hours in game, 7 or 6 hours in character customization.
Yeah, no, it's pretty insane. But again, it's like one of the things that like people love about MMOs is to be able to customize your character and just look as cool as you want to look. Like I know one of the big things I love about World of Warcraft is being able to transmog your character and find old gear that looks super sick, whether it's a set or combining different sets to create your own thing and just rocking with that. I think that's an awesome aspect of MMOs, and you're kind of seeing it now. Like you see some people with some crazy looking gear and it looks insane. And again, that's a big pro and a big plus to me. I know a lot of people were complaining about the combat, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the combat. I think the combat is pretty cool, pretty refreshing. It's like a mix of both your old school tab targeting MMOs and some of the live action combats where you have these skill shots and you have to aim things and you have to time things. The dodge mechanic is pretty cool. It's something different, and I'm kind of trying to figure. Yeah. It's I'm kind of trying to figure out like where I want to keybind it. I'm just so used to
Q or something like that.
Yeah, and I already changed it. I have it like as my mouse button just because I use Q and E to move. So that's just what I've always done with WoW. So for me, Q and E were just I had to switch those.
QWE, dude.
Yeah. I'm a QWE mover. Yeah. So I had to change that instantly. I wish they would let you customize your bars a little bit more to where you can maybe add more abilities, and maybe that's something that's coming with add-ons. I think as the game gets supported more, maybe you'll see some add-ons and you'll be able to add more abilities to your cast bar, because I definitely feel a little bit crippled with only like 10 buttons. I'm like, oh, okay.
So to add to that, just real quick, you actually have so per weapon it's 12 abilities. So overall you have 24 abilities, but you only have 12 slots. And then I think for passives it's like 8 each, and you can only select 8. So you gotta you can't even use everything.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of where the complexity of your build and like what you're trying to go for, which I think is super, super cool. And it's like kind of getting into the more nerdy aspect of like gaming. It's like you have to figure out what build, but then you also level up your abilities. So you have to figure out what abilities you want to put time and effort into, because it's not just every ability is max level right away and you don't have to do anything with that. It's you get these resources from questing and doing other stuff, and you can't necessarily put resources into an ability, or you don't want to put resources into an ability that you're just not going to use. So
I made that mistake already. So
yeah, I know, and hopefully it's not. It's a little bit more forgiving once you get to end game and you're able to make adjustments relatively easily, or you're able to farm the materials that you need a lot easier. Because that's one thing that I can definitely see kind of pushing people away is if it gets to the point where you hit max level and then you realize, oh crap, I need to switch up abilities, or I want to switch weapons, and then just make it extremely difficult to either farm or make the change. I think that's gonna be a big no-no for a lot of players.
Not to mention too, I mean, like you got things, let's just say like World of Warcraft, where certain abilities get nerfed or buffed, so like you prioritize those over others. So like if you can only choose 12 total, like imagine spending all this time and effort leveling up one ability only to see that they just nerf the hell out of it. So where it's almost pointless in using.
Yeah. And another thing you kind of touched on too is kind of the emphasis on the guilds. I think that's a big thing that a lot of MMOs nowadays are kind of losing that aspect that you need to. An MMO should be played with other people. It's not a single player experience. Like, you need to play these games with other people, and kind of forcing almost. I honestly think they kind of force you into a guild, because I'm at a point right now where I can't progress unless I join a guild and earn a guild coin. So it's like I have to earn this reward by doing a guild activity.
Well, you also get a minor XP boost. I think it's like 1% or something like that, but I mean, it's still.
Yeah, but it's super cool that they're kind of forcing you into this aspect of it, and then kind of giving you the opportunity to consume all the content. Because, like you said, the big push for them is this more PvP centric, but really trying to emphasize on this guild v guild aspect, and push you to compete with your guild and earn rewards with your guild. Like, they have dungeons that at nighttime turn into contested dungeons, and guilds can go in there and kill other players so they don't receive loot from the boss. Like, that's super cool. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think they're definitely, though, doing it right, like with the whole guild thing, and even like so WoW, I think, introduced the whole LFG crap, I think, after MOP. And I feel like that's kind of like when the game started declining, because like you said, it was back in the day, like, you needed to be in a guild. You needed to play with, you had to make friends in game. If you wanted to do arenas, you had to like literally form a team with the I think it was 4 people total. You could have 1 sub, but you had to, be friends with these people. And now in WoW, you got the solo shuffles, you got the solo BG Blitz, and they're making it more of a solo kind of game. But like you said, MMOs, dude, they're so fun. Like, when you have a group of people playing, like, dude, I remember freaking old Discord calls with people from the guild, and you'd have like 30 freaking people, dude. Yeah, in the call, and you got the banner going back and forth. So I think, like, if they really do focus on like the whole social aspect of this, and making the guild a requirement, or making group play in general a requirement, then I think it's gonna do really good.
So, yeah, and I get it. It's and MMOs are tough. It takes a lot of time and investment to play these games, and it's difficult finding groups, and it's difficult playing with a consistent group. And a lot of the MMO players tend to be older. They tend to be 25 to 35 or older. I'm not 100% sure what the average player age, but I could assume like we're in our 30s, and we've been playing MMO since we were kids, and I'm sure a lot of the people that are still playing World of Warcraft are probably around our age. And we work, we have careers. We don't necessarily have 8-10 hours every day. Like I know when I was in college, I would play a shit ton of World of Warcraft. I was playing like, if I wasn't doing stuff with friends or doing whatever, and I was home, I was playing World of Warcraft. And you just don't necessarily have the time, and people just want to be able to jump in and play games and kind of move on. And I think that's a big reason like battle royales are as big as they are, is because
hop in and play.
Yeah, you can hop in, you can play a game, and you can 30 minutes, 40 minutes, you're done, and that's fine.
See, dude, I've actually made several posts on like Reddit about how I think that World of Warcraft should take a plug and play kind of thing into it. And I've always just been hit with massive downvotes and just been called a dumbass and stuff like that, because I think about it, because again, the games, MMOs in general, like I said, are catered definitely to 25 and up crowd, and they need new ways of getting new players in. And like, when you got to sit here, I mean, again, dude, I got 27 hours in. I mean, granted, again, I got 2 characters, but I'm not even like max level yet. A lot of people just want that instant gratification of being able to play. So, just real quick, I just want to mention some things that I didn't like really quick. Now, I actually bought the Battle Pass for this game because I was enjoying it so much that I really wanted to support the company. Now, don't make the same mistake I did. Your Battle Pass is character bound, not account bound. So, and again, you can only, just you can only make 2 characters per server? Yeah, per server. So every character that you make and you want the battle pass, you have to repurchase the battle pass every single time. So what I thought, and I didn't even know this, and somebody had to point this out to me, was that the battle pass actually gives you items that are able to be sold on their in-game auction house or market. So you would have thought like the battle pass just would have included, things like, cosmetics and stuff like that, but no, they're giving you raw materials that you can actually sell. So basically the whole point of not allowing it to be account bound is they don't want somebody to be able to constantly, make new characters and just, make all this money in game because they're selling everything. Now, you mentioned combat. I'm mixed on the combat because maybe it's just because I was playing on a West Coast server and I'm East Coast, up in Indiana, but the combat to me felt kind of clunky. So like my abilities, I had to spam them multiple times for them to register. And there was a few, I can't remember the name of the spell, but if you run daggers, it teleports you behind the person. Now, when you do like play World of Warcraft, and you play like a rogue or something like that, and you do like a shadow step, it automatically puts you behind the character and you're facing the back of them. This one teleports you behind it, but the camera is all freaking. The camera doesn't really rotate like it would in WoW. It doesn't have that smooth transition, so you got to do that and really quickly pan your camera around. So it kind of felt, like I said, a little clunky for that. Now, I did get a look at their 3v3 arena, and I'm not a fan of the whole team deathmatch aspect to it. And so basically what it was like you had, two teams of three, and they're pretty much just going at it, trying to get the most kills to win the game. And the UI too was like very. I wish there was more to it. I guess I know the game's only been out for a few days, and it's trying to. I think that I'm trying to hold this game to WoW standards, a game that's been out for 20 years. And like Steve mentioned to me several times when we were talking about this while I was playing it, is like, I'm not very familiar with the game. I've been playing WoW since I was a kid, so it's I know that game inside and out. Now, the menus to me felt very hard to maneuver. It was kind of hard to figure out how to invite friends, to figure out where to do quests, because there eventually comes a point in the game where, let's just say, I think it's like you hit like level 26 and it's like level up to level 28 before you can get this quest. So it's like, you're like, where do I go? What do I do? So you have to actually go and search through the menus to find a list of like exploration quests that you can go do in order to get to that level. Now, the same thing with like finding out like how to do dungeons and stuff like that. It was confusing, but again, I think it's one of those things that like once I do it more, I'll be like, oh, okay, it'd be a lot easier. Now, like Steve mentioned too, there's a lot of like materials you gather, for leveling up, like your abilities, your with your armor and stuff like that, your weapons. But there's not a lot of information yet on like what all the materials you gather are for, because you just see like these, blue and green coins. Sometimes you're like, what the hell is this? And you got to go look it up, and like you're able to transfer stats from one weapon to the other, but they don't really give you an explanation on how to do that. It's very confusing, but again, I imagine if you put more time into the game, it's going to become a lot easier. Now, their auction house is a real money transaction auction house, which there was a huge gripe about, because I don't think pay to win or pay to progress should even be a thing. And this is something me and Steve disagree on heavily. With that, because you said that, Steve. You said that like all MMOs are pretty much pay to win.
For the most part, I think to an extent, like money gives you the ability to bypass a lot of things in MMOs. And yeah, not all the game developers support it, and a lot of it is done through third party websites. But they're like with World of Warcraft, you can buy gold. I mean, even Blizzard gives you the opportunity to buy gold, purchase gold, and you could do a lot of things with gold, whether it's buying carries or buying items that will give you a lot more power or give you a head start to doing things. You could buy character boosts, so you don't have to necessarily progress through the leveling aspect of it. I think the concept of using money to enhance your play is something that's out there in all MMOs, and again, if it's done well, I think it's fine. I know like a lot of the stuff that you're able to buy, like yeah, it's gear you can buy. I know there's certain gear that you can't sell, so that's a good thing. Like I know you can extract like the characteristics of the weapons, but not every weapon is sellable. Not every piece of armor is sellable. So that's a plus sign. Like I was watching Shroud, who is notorious for spending loads and loads of money on MMOs, and he kind of basically stated like, yeah, it's the him spending all this money. It didn't necessarily make him that much stronger. Like he maybe got like a 3% increase. Like a lot of the increase is going to come from you grinding and getting the materials that you need to upgrade your weapon. Like yeah, you could buy the weapon, but if you don't upgrade it, it's not necessarily going to be very good for you.
Well, they're saying too that that 3%, like it seems like it might be big in like a 1v1 duel scenario, but if you're doing these huge like guild v guild battles, you're not really going to see that 3% difference anyway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of in this game specifically, there's a lot of like hard counters where certain weapon types and certain you can only this is one of the good things too. It's like there's traits and characteristics that you can select. Like you could have more resistance to magic or more resistance to melee, but you can't necessarily really have both. So you could be really strong against melee, but if you get a caster, like they can just completely melt you. So that's another aspect of it too. Like yeah, there's going to be hard counters to your class and your build, and it's going to happen, especially with these games where you have to choose like and be very specific about what you're choosing.
Yeah, true. That's true. Now, I did notice that a lot of the meta builds consist of one like melee weapon and one long range, just to kind of combat that. If you got somebody rocking, a sword and shield and daggers, how are you going to go against somebody that's running like a bow and a staff? That person could just kite you around the whole time. So you
Yeah.
kind of do got to put some thought into what you build. Now, the other thing I wanted to kind of say that was really kind of like a Debbie or a big Debbie Downer for me. I was a big Debbie Downer about this was the no sharing of quests. So like in WoW, you can if you and a friend decide to level up, you can sync quests. Here there is no doing that. You guys can kind of follow along each other, on the same quest, but you guys can't do the same quests at the same time. And that was kind of a huge bummer for me because, like, I mean, I've played it a little bit by myself, but majority I've been playing with, like Brett and stuff like that. And then you cannot request duels of other players. Now, in their main city, which I think is called Castleton, they have an arena area that's pretty much just like an open dueling area. And when you walk into it, it's just like this open pit. After about like 10 seconds, your character is flagged for combat, and it's pretty much a free for all. And I wish you could just request a duel from a specific person because, like I said, me and Sam tried going in and dueling, and we were like level 20, dude. We were just testing abilities out, and as soon as we got in there, we were flagged for PvP, and then all the 50s were just sitting there one shotting us. I'm like, well, this is freaking stupid. Really? This is fucking stupid. I'm not. And somebody goes, yeah, you shouldn't be in here if you're not level 50. I'm like, well, I want to be able to duel my friend. I want to be able to test the abilities out and stuff like that against them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably something that they're going to add. I know there's been a lot of changes to the game since it kind of opened up. Like this game, its first beta iteration was back in 2016, and I got a chance to play a little bit of the beta last year, and since then they've changed a lot of what the game is like and how the game kind of functions. So I'm sure that they're going to continue to add things into the game and kind of make it a little bit better. Like for me specifically, I tend to enjoy more of the PVE aspects of MMOs. Like I love big raids. I love difficult dungeons. Like that's what I enjoy for an MMO. So that's kind of a big downside for me for this game is it's very centered around PvP, and I haven't gotten a chance to do any PvP, but I know I tend to enjoy more PVE than anything. So unless they add some sort of like some of the raids and dungeons that I've seen from Endgame aren't super don't look super crazy, but I really hope they add something to make this game worth it in the end game. We kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, where MMOs tend to kind of be centered around what is your end game. If you don't have anything to do in end game, then people aren't. They're not going to
Yeah, they're not
want
going to come back
to.
on.
Yeah, they're not going to want to invest the time to get their character to 50, to get their character geared, to level up their character weapons and abilities and all that stuff. They're just going to see no point in it and just instantly stop. And that's what kind of draws people to playing these games. Like, people don't necessarily like the leveling aspect of World of Warcraft, but they want to play the end game. They want to get to experience the end game. And that's why they kind of go through and do that investment of getting gear, leveling, and doing all that stuff, just so they can play the end game. And if this doesn't necessarily do that well, then I don't really foresee it kind of lasting too long.
Well, the end game right now is kind of just like PvP battles. There isn't really much of an end game. Well, okay, so I don't know if you noticed this. So I know you, like you said, you're a big PvE player. Did you know that you only can do a certain amount of dungeons per day?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that
How'd
you can
feel
buy
about
like
that?
I saw that you can buy dungeon keys and do all that. And I know I was kind of reading that they do this on purpose because they don't want people to spam dungeons to level. They
That
want
makes
people
sense.
to experience the game and get a chance to do some of the group content. Because once you kind of get to the point where you're like at end game, like you should have, whether it's you or someone in your guild has enough to kind of be able to purchase these entries into the dungeons. Who knows? I haven't got a chance to really explore that much part of it, but I'm fine with that. I'm fine
You
with
get a shit ton of gold in this game, dude. Like I have like 2 million gold at like level 30 something. So
yeah. I mean, I'm fine with limiting it to X amount of runs per day. That also kind of removes that grind aspect of it, where it's like you're not like, I know World of Warcraft. We kind of keep coming back to that just because this is the game that we kind of tend to play the most. Is you could sit there and grind the same dungeon for 6-7 hours just trying to get one piece of gear. And
well, that's how we were leveling too. Like when with the War Within, like your first character, you had to do the campaign, and then you spam dungeons. But like once you finish a campaign, on the first character, I think that's what everybody's doing because you were getting so much XP and clearing the dungeon so fast that you literally ran the same like 4 dungeons for like 5 hours.
yeah,
just to level up. And I actually think in Throne and Liberty, like dungeons don't give you nearly as much XP as questing, and everybody said follow the quest line. Do not do dungeons to level.
Yeah, and again, they do that on purpose because they just don't want players to feel like they need to spam dungeons to level. They want players to be able to level doing the world events. One of the cool things too that I really like about this is the weapon based system. It's because you don't necessarily need to re-level another character once you get to 50. All you really have to do is just get the weapons, and now you can level up your weapons and not necessarily feel like you're kind of back at the starting zone. Like you don't have to redo the questing. You don't have to redo any of that. You just kind of fall back into that. Okay, now we're grinding for materials so I can level this up.
I wish it kind of gave you more information though on like how high you can level it up, or like if there's like a max. Like I said in WoW, it's like when you have your best in slot. I wonder if there's eventually going to be lists. I mean, I know that you got things like Wowhead and like Icy Veins that, you know, tell you what your best in slot is. I wonder if eventually this game's going to have like, this is what you need to do. This is the gear that you want, what level you need it at.
Yeah,
you know,
and again, like kind of like how we were talking about a couple of days ago. It's one of those things. It's like you've been playing this one game for so long that it doesn't seem confusing to you, and you're kind of able to understand this portion of the game. Like there's not a whole lot of information out there about this game, and I'm sure there's going to be websites that drop guides and give you more information about how to build your character if you want to completely optimize it. But for now, it's people just kind of doing whatever, getting max level and trying to figure out like, okay, this is the best build for this. You need to level up these. You need to get these weapons. But no one really knows right now.
I just want to mention about that. You can actually, there is a website called metabattle.com that has like a list of like the best builds right now so far and tier lists. But, you know, it's funny too that you mentioned like, again, the things I was complaining to you about this game, you're like, dude, like you have been playing that game forever, and somebody just hopping into WoW, I'm sure they have the same questions with WoW that I have with Throne and Liberty. So you really kind of, you really had to like dumb it down for me. Like, dude, you need to understand, like you said, you got all these different tiers of gear, and then you got different, 100 different ways of acquiring that gear, and then it's like you got to upgrade the gear, and it's like, how do you acquire the tokens to upgrade the gear. Then you got the so it's like it's pretty much the same thing. I just
Yeah.
So where do you how do you rank this game? I think it actually, to me, I've the only MMOs I've ever played really have been World of Warcraft. I've been hooked on that game since I was a kid, and as somebody who's been playing that game for so long, I think that this game definitely ranks high. I mean, it's got its issues, but with it for how early it's been out, like I think it ranks up there pretty freaking high. I mean, it's boasting like almost 300K concurrent players on Steam alone, and I mean I play until like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still seeing 180 200K plus players on just Steam alone. So how do you rank it like in terms of like other MMOs?
Again, like without really playing much of, or without playing any of the end game, it's very difficult for me to put a rating into it. Like just the leveling and questing and movement, I would put this relatively high. I think the combat is fun. I think the way you move, the zones are awesome. I love the grappling thing. Like the grappling thing is super super cool to me. I love that as you're kind of walking around questing, you'll randomly see these like little platform puzzles that you have to figure out to get these book pages, or get your traveling rock thing. I forget what that's called, that lets you use fast travel.
Yeah,
They're just kind of randomly placed sometimes at the top of a building, and you have to figure out how to get up there. Like that stuff is super cool to me. I really enjoy that. Again, like
there are a few of those I was pretty pissed at.
yeah.
You could like hop on a rock, then hop on a stick. Yeah, it was like it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's but it adds this level of fun and creativity to your gameplay. I love some of the solo dungeons. Like some of the solo dungeons are really fun. I've only gotten a chance to do 2 of them just because of my level, but those are super super fun.
They're hard as shit.
Oh yeah, but it's so fun, and it reminds me. I wasn't playing WoW when they had the Mage Tower, but it reminds me of kind of like a Brawlers Guild. I don't know if you ever played.
I remember that. Yeah, you had everybody was kind of watching you defeat the bosses. Yeah.
Like that was super fun. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to figure out how to beat every single boss, and when I finally did it, I was so happy. But like those little things are enjoyable, and it just gives you something to do, and it makes you want to continue playing it. Again, like if they were to add some end game content with some big raids and maybe a couple more dungeons, for me the raid is going to be the big thing. Like I've played a lot of different MMOs, and the thing that kind of tends to draw me to MMOs more, especially nowadays, is how good their raids are. Like I've played Guild Wars 2, I've played WildStar, I've played Lost Ark, I've played World of Warcraft, I played the Star Wars MMO, and the things that can kind of tend to keep me hooked is, okay, there's this big raid that has this crazy looking boss that you need to beat, and once you beat it, you get this kind of chilling out point, and then you kind of move on to the next thing. Like I think Lost Ark has some of the best raiding content you could have. Like some of the PvE battles are insane. World of Warcraft, I think,
freaking
has
Shroud said that Lost Ark was better than WoW PvE.
It's really good. If you've never had a chance to play Lost Ark, it's a blast. It's some of the more enjoyable PvE content that I've ever played, just because the combat feels like you're playing a MOBA. So it's super fast paced, it's super quick, but it's super rewarding, and you get some huge bosses that you get to fight. But WoW, same thing. Like it has some insane raids. Like some of the raids are super super fun, and as they've kind of progressed and gotten with the newer expansions, the raids get harder and harder and harder, and they just become more difficult. If you kind of go back to some of the older ones, it was very much like, oh, just a tank and spank. You just sit there and just avoid the little swirlies on the ground, and that's it. Now there's like these crazy mechanics that you have to like time perfectly or position yourself perfectly, or you're just gonna wipe the raid. But I would put it maybe for now, with everything that I've gotten a chance to do, probably like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, see, I need to really kind of check out these other MMOs. I'm actually gonna I don't want to. I hate leveling, dude. Like I'm like I feel like I'm the majority here when I say I hate freaking leveling, dude. When WoW introduced the character boost, let me tell you, dude, I just slammed my freaking credit card down on the table. Like, I'm not going through that whole crap again. Granted, again, I knew all the classes. So, like, if you're one of those people that, like, if it's a brand new game, don't boost a character because you're gonna miss out on like how to do everything and what everything about your character and class is. But I hate not I play games for the end game. And like I said, I mean I'm at like level 30 some, so I mean I only got like 20 more levels. But holy crap, dude, am I tired of questing already?
No, yeah, and that's one of the things too, and I think any new MMO should really look at bringing the max level lower and kind of allowing you to get into the end game content a lot sooner. Um, but that also puts them in the situation where they have to be releasing content regularly. They have to
Yeah.
just constantly release content because if you try to compare it to a game like a lot of people think what ruined MMOs is a lot of these like gotcha games like Genshin Impact, Lost Ark being another one where they're heavily funded by all these microtransactions, people buying gear, people buying characters, people buying all sorts of stuff. And but the thing that these games do is they just pump out so much content. Like Genshin Impact has a different event every single year for like Halloween events. It's a different Halloween event every single year. Unlike World of Warcraft, it's the same event every single year,
Yeah,
but
the headless
it's
horseman.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but you
like
want the mount, dude.
yeah, but like Genshin Impact, it's something different all the time, and that's cool. Like that's awesome. Like at that point, it's like you kind of look forward to these things, and that's what these companies need to do. And I think what a lot of these newer companies are doing is they just release something and expect people to want to play it for a year, 2 years without any updates, and then when they realize they've lost their entire player base, they're like, oh crap, we
How
need
is this?
to we need to do something soon. Like that was a big drawback with New World, the Amazon game. They released, there was a lot of issues with it, and then it took them forever to update it. Then they finally updated it, and same thing. It was not great. They didn't make the changes soon enough, and kind of ended up in a situation where they lost a lot of the player base, and now they're kind of coming back and doing something else. But the big thing I want to see with MMOs is how they're able to transition the game into onto console. And I think this game is Throne and Liberty is doing it very well because a lot of the people that I'm seeing that are playing with controllers are able to do a lot of the same things that people are able to do with keyboard and mouse. And I think if you can get a different audience and different player base into these games, I think that's huge.
Well, dude, I've seen people like have actually played WoW, even like WoW arenas and stuff like that on. I think they're called like game pads and controllers, so it's definitely doable. But I think they need to like focus on releasing it on consoles because, like I said, this game Throne and Liberty is on all platforms, so you're able to play. I mean, like I got friends too who unfortunately don't have the money to be able to get a gaming PC. And like it would be awesome to be able to be in a guild with them and be able to do the PvP with them. And I think that's a really good thing. So like, okay, so how do you feel like about MMO's landscape as like a whole, especially now? We talked about how the games are catered towards 20, 25 to 40-year olds and stuff like that. And what I noticed is a lot of the, I'm not going to say the more popular one, because again, WoW is a subscription based game and you have to buy every expansion. But like you mentioned some good ones, Guild Wars 2, Lost Ark, now Throne and Liberty. They're all free to play. But you got the microtransactions. Like I kind of wish WoW would do the same. Like I didn't mind the battle pass. I've said this before. I think WoW should have a battle pass. I think you get away from that subscription based model because it creates like a barrier of entry. Not everybody wants to pay the freaking $15 a month. Now, okay, let me rephrase that. They'll pay the $15 a month if it's going to a battle pass, right? If they're getting something, getting rewards and all the stuff out of that. But if you're having to pay $15 a month just to play the game, like I feel like that does create like a barrier to entry. So like how do you feel about like the whole MMO landscape as a whole right now?
And I actually kind of think that's why Blizzard is transitioning to this different model of now they're releasing expansions a lot more frequently, because I think they realize players aren't going to play your game or your expansion for 4 years anymore. Like once you get to like that kind of 1 to 2 year mark, and you're like, okay, we're not going to release anymore. We're only going to release content every 6 months. Like people are going to leave and stop playing your game.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what has been happening towards the end of a lot of these expansions. Is people are basically like, okay, there's no point in me playing. I'm just going to cancel my subscription and come back when the new expansion comes out. And that's usually what happens. You'll see these spikes and drops, like huge drops in the WoW player base, and how many people are doing these dungeons and PvP and all that. Like you'll see this huge spike in the beginning of the expansion, and then it just kind of slowly starts trickling down, and then eventually it kind of flattens out. The people that want to play the game continue to play the game, but you need to be able to just pump out content to make people want to invest time into these games, because an MMO, it's a lot of work to keep up. Basically, there's always gear that you have to get. Like as soon as the new content comes out, you have to re-gear. You have to get better gear. You have to be able to get gear so you can go into normal raid and then heroic raid, and then if you want to do mythic raiding, PvP, same thing. Like your conquest gear basically becomes useless, and you have to get the new honor gear. And now it's like your honor gear, then you have to get the new conquest gear, and then you have to do all this other stuff. And it's like this constant grind to just kind of stay ahead or stay at the level of everyone else. And it's difficult for people to want to commit to doing that nowadays, I think.
Well, like what I think Throne of Liberty is doing good, like you said, you need a reason to grind. Is they're putting rating in the arenas and stuff like that. So I think WoW made like a really good transition when they made the whole Mythic Dungeons, right? Because back in the day, before Mythic Dungeons were done, it's like, let's be realistic here. If you were a PvE player, if you got all your dungeon gear, well, you had to wait for the tiers of the raid to open up. Well, once they opened up, once you already cleared it on heroic, and then you cleared it on mythic, now you're just kind of like, well, now what do? I have nothing to really do. So like I think they did a good job of bringing mythics for people to grind out that raid. Same thing with arenas. People are grinding the titles, are grinding the gladiator mounts, are grinding the rank ones, and trying to become the highest rated whatever your class you are. So like you're 100% right. Like these games, if you're gonna be an MMO, you need to be pumping out that content to get people, because people are gonna grind the hell out of your game. So you need to have that content for them as well.
Yeah, and you're kind of seeing it with WoW, where less and less players are coming back for the game. Like the Mythic Dungeon player base continues to decrease year over year. Less and less, almost nobody plays PvP anymore. Like PvP is basically a dead game mode in
no,
WoW.
it's not. Don't say that.
It really is. I think there was something like there's more Mythic Dungeons done in one day than all levels of arena are done in a week. And like that's crazy. Like if you think about it, from solo shuffle, 3v3, 2v2, it's insane to see that like one game mode is completely dominating everything, and you're kind of starting to see with Blizzard kind of mostly balancing everything based on PvP and or PvE, and not necessarily doing much for PvP, which kind of tends to make your PvP fan base feel like they're unimportant, because again, Blizzard kind of tends to think that it just is what it is. Like not a whole lot of people playing this game
about their PvP player base. They like did away with like almost like 95% of their PvP devs. So
yeah, and it's these games are never going to find the perfect balance. Like you have to figure out whether you want to commit to one side or the other. And the games that tend to do better are the ones that tend to focus on PvE. So you're going to see all these MMOs, new ones, old ones, that are kind of focusing more on the PvE side and having some sense of PvP here for the players that do want to do that, but not necessarily place it as an emphasis.
Well, somebody made a good argument about this, basically stating that like the reason why PvE is so popular is because, I'm going to use WoW as an example here. there are so many CCs, or what's crowd controls, which are, stuns, silences, roots, fears. So like you don't even, you can hop in an arena, dude, for let's just say like a 2-minute match, and you may have been able to play your character for like 30 seconds the whole time. So people go into, the dungeons and the raids like that to be able to actually play their character. Now, what I wish WoW would do, and I think this might be why people stop playing and don't want to come back, is like, dude, there are so many goddamn buttons. Like, again, Throne of Liberty, you got 12 abilities that you can actually use. Like, I think, and like, so with WoW, like you play an Arcane Mage, and even like an Unholy DK. If you haven't been playing those classes for a long time, like it's very kind of confusing on what to do, because you've got 40 different abilities, different buffs that you have to prioritize. It's like if they would just simplify it, I think it'd be easier and more people would play it.
Yeah, and then with PvP kind of adding a whole nother level of complexity, where if you really do want to kind of play at a higher level, you need to have these specific buttons for each different arena target, whether it's your Arena 1, Arena 2, Arena 3, or focus macros, all these different things that kind of add a whole nother layer of complexity. So you're going to have now one ability that has 3 different buttons because you want to maximize what you're able to do. So it definitely makes it a lot more difficult.
I got like 45 freaking keybinds.
Yeah, it's insane. I used to play Arms Warrior back in Kata and MOP, and I remember having like 10, 12 buttons or something like that, and maybe press like 4 or 5. Yeah. And I booted it up last expansion. I was like, oh, let me try Arms Warrior. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, Arms Warrior used to be like one of the easiest classes. I was like, what is going on? It's like I have all these different things, and yeah, it was insane. But yeah, definitely making it easier. I think simple is perfect. And this is why I love Lost Ark. You have very minimal abilities. I think you have like maybe 5 buttons, if that. And it's super simple, but it's rewarding.
Because the combat is hard, right? The mechanics.
Yeah. It's similar. I would say it's similar to WoW in a sense where it's like you have a lot of area of effects that you have to dodge. You have to position yourself well. You have to know when to do damage, and that's the big part with this game. It's just knowing when to do damage, knowing when you need to move, knowing when you can cast, knowing when you can come in and go in for abilities. So a lot of that stuff that kind of complicates WoW raids, but it's super fast paced because
you got 100 different add-ons though, telling you what's coming up and what to do and where to move. And
in World of Warcraft, yeah, and I think that's a lot of people dislike that aspect of World of Warcraft. Is it kind of became something where you can't play the game unless you have add-ons and weak auras to tell you everything that you're supposed to do. And I'm fine with the add-ons portion of it, but there's a lot of add-ons too that create a level of toxicity in the game that I think MMOs tend to be. It's a common factor in MMOs. There's a lot of toxicity that tends to be not as encouraging for new players. Like new players don't feel welcoming when they come into a game and they're just getting shit on for messing up in a dungeon that you've done a million times. If they mess something up, like, and I've definitely done it myself, where I'm talking trash about someone for messing a mechanic up in a simple dungeon. But again, it's like it could be their first time booting up, and all of a sudden they're just they're messing up this simple mechanic.
That's why I think, like you said, like they need to follow the keep it simple, stupid, because with the dungeons and even raids, like if you're a new player, dude, you're trying to manage 80 different keybinds while trying to also pay attention to the fight and pay attention to every mechanic that the boss is doing. And then you got the ads that you got to make sure you interrupt this one and stun that one. It's like so much stuff. So if you only had to manage, let's just say like 10 keybinds, like I think it would be a hell of a lot easier for new people to come in. I think a lot more enjoyable, because I see that's what a lot of people complain about, is the sheer amount of abilities, and most of them it's just button bloat. Like for example, on like a rogue, you got slice and dice that increases your attack speed and energy regeneration. Like that should be something that's like built in as like a passive. There's so much stuff. You know, like even for like unholy DKs, dude, you got what, like outbreak that throws out your diseases. Like you should have that, should be built into like, you know, a frost strike or a certain strike that automatically applies like your thing. Like why make somebody spend that extra button so you're having to press 80 buttons before you even start even doing your damage? It's freaking stupid.
Yeah, like druids having to keep up iron for paladins having to
Yeah.
sit in their consecration, DKs same thing, having to sit in their death and decay. There's a lot of things that just make the game not as enjoyable. Where if it was passive or you didn't have to worry about doing any of that, that'd be great. You just kind of, and again, I think they want to increase the level of complexity for some of the more hardcore players, but again, like I don't think you need to necessarily add this level of button bloat to increase the complexity. You can just make the raids and the dungeons harder.
100%.
Another
Like,
thing,
look at League of Legends. You got four abilities, but they all interact differently with everybody. You don't need 100 abilities
we also
to
have a
show your
bunch of
skill.
different items that you can buy to change the way your character plays. Like that's where League adds their like level of complexity is like
Yeah.
you have like a million different builds that you could do based on the items that you buy that make it super difficult. Where if you don't know what you're buying, like yeah, they give you recommendations, but I don't necessarily think the recommendations are the best ones based on who
No,
you're
yeah.
going up against.
Yeah, 100%.
But no, yeah, for sure, they definitely need to make it a little bit simpler. In your mind, what would you kind of put like? What would be the I guess the highest level of MMO? Like if you were to pick like the gold standard, what would it be for you?
Like which MMO do I think is like the best?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think you already know this, bro. It's World of Warcraft. As much as the
It
game pisses me off, it's just the fluidity of it and how smooth it goes. Like, and I think if Throne and Liberty irons out these kings, which there's no doubt that I think that they will, I think there's a very good chance that it may be my newest MMO. Like I've actually spent more time playing Throne of Liberty this week than I have been playing WoW.
Do you think World of Warcraft will continue to kind of be that gold standard in the next 10 years? Like in 2035, do you think you're still
I
going to be playing World of Warcraft?
honestly, like I do, but here's the thing too: is like I think we need more Throne and Liberties. We need more Lost Arks out there because what that does is it keeps Blizzard and them on their toes. Because if you're the only, you know, the biggest MMO, the only MMO that people are playing, like you can do whatever the fuck you want, and nobody, you know, who cares? You know, if you don't like it, well, good luck finding another MMO that is as popular as I am. So like
Yeah,
with how
it's
good Throne and Liberty is, I'm hoping that like they're taking things from WoW and like all these other MMOs, but like making them better.
yeah, no, yeah, for sure. It's crazy to see because MMOs is, I would say, like the one genre where games that have been around for like 10, 15 years are still the kind of gold standard in terms of this is the game that people are playing the most with World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Final Fantasy. Like if you look up MMOs, like those are probably the first three that you're going to see if you do like top 10 MMOs in
And it's been
2024.
that way for the longest time too. I mean, how many games have tried to like even like compete, and it's just like they've always like just failed. But like,
Yeah. I remember like like 10 years ago you would every other week you'd see the WoW killer, it's this game, and
yeah,
you would hop on it and like a month or two later it would just be dead, like no one would be playing it.
and it makes you wonder too if it's just because of the end game. Because WoW does have some very good end game. I think it's probably got some of the best. Even Final Fantasy, like their raids and stuff like that, are very good. You know, it's a very good story to follow. So I think if you know Throne and Liberty can really develop a good end game, then I think that they, you know, are a very strong contender against World of Warcraft. And like I said, it'll hold them to that standard, you know, of having to put out like good content. Like I said, they're already doing. I think WoW's already making a lot of good changes.
Yeah, it's definitely like we said earlier, the increase or the less time that they're spending now to release new expansions, I think that's huge. The fact that we're going to get a new expansion what, in like a year, that's insane. Like you normally this is like the expansion just started. You're kind of still to the
Like
point where
5 years
you're
usually.
yeah, I know. I think Cataclysm was like 4 or 5 years, and everything tends to kind of be around that 4 year mark. And you're going to get maybe 2 raids, and then they're going to go to a new expansion. That's insane. And
well, Chris, the developer, one of the lead developers of World of Warcraft, was stating it's kind of funny, stating that, oh man, we should have listened to the player base a long time ago. It's like, yeah, no shit, dude, because we're the ones paying, these subscription fees for the games.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like Throne of Liberty has any plans on releasing multiple expansions and stuff like that. So there isn't really a whole lot of stuff out about it, but
I think they already have an expansion planned, but no like set time frame as to when they're going to release it.
I gotcha. So is there anything else you really want to talk about with this game, or?
No. I think we hit on a lot.
So like I said, you guys, if you guys are looking for a new MMO that can compete with World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, I highly suggest you at least give this game a try. Like I said, I've played this more than I've played WoW this whole week, and I've had a fantastic time playing it. So I want to thank you guys all for listening to this special episode of the No BS podcast. And like I said, we plan on doing more of these, so just make sure you stay connected with us on all of our socials at No BS Podcast GG, to find out when we do more of these.